Hello, everybody. My name is Jax James. I am the Executive Director for Texas NORML, here to talk to you guys about what is going on with the current legislative session. We are in the 88th Texas Legislature right now. Here in Texas, our legislature meets every 2 years for 140 days. Pre-filing of bills started in mid-November, and the session kicked off in early January. Recently, committees were assigned and bills have been moving towards committees. And the bill filing deadline is coming up on March the 10th. So once we hit that date, there will be no new bills filed and we will be working with what we have. So what I want to do tonight is go over the different bills that we have going on. We'll start with legalization, decriminalization, medical access. We'll go over some different miscellaneous bills that have been filed. And then I'm going to come over to the comments section and answer any questions that you guys might have. So just go ahead and if you have a question as I'm going through, drop it in the comments and I will get back to it. So as I mentioned, we are currently in the 88th legislature and there have been quite a few bills filed. There's still about 10 days left to file legislation. So it is likely that we could see some more come our way. But let's start with medical cannabis. We have two Senate bills that have been filed. One is Senate Bill 121 by Senator Jose Menendez, and the other is SB 127 by Senator Alvarado, and this is to turn the Texas Compassionate Use Program into a program where doctors could decide who should be a qualified patient. So these both would institute that type of program, and Senator Menendez's also would provide protections for cannabis patients and caregivers while also creating a medical cannabis research advisory board. Both of these bills have been referred to the Senate Health and Human Services Committee, so they have been sent to committee, but no hearing has been scheduled yet. For reference, hearings have just kind of really started over the last week or two, and mostly dealing with some what's been noted as priority legislation by leadership. So this is the time when hearings are really going to start cranking up now and through March. Then there's also legislation, HB 1200 by Ron Reynolds, that would allow for medical cannabis with those for qualifying conditions, and it would change the THC cap and remove it. It would also allow for home cultivation and includes certain patient and parental protections. Now, this is the bill that I think at this point in time is the bill to watch. It's HB 1805, authored by Representative Click, who has been the author of every bill that has passed having to do with the Compassionate Use Program. And this does seek to expand the program by adding chronic pain as a qualifying condition and also increasing the THC count. Further, it would allow for the Department of State Health Services to designate qualifying conditions instead of legislators deciding them every 2 years. So this is a bill that I think is definitely important to watch, and it has not yet been referred to committee for a hearing, but I assume that that will happen relatively soon. Now, talking about penalty reduction bills, first let's talk about the big bill that had a hearing yesterday, one of our priority bits of legislation, HB 218 by Representative Joe Moody. This is a merging of two bills, one that passed the House last session and the other that passed the House and the Senate but died in conference committee last session. And what it does is it reduces the penalties for possession of an ounce or less of cannabis flower or cannabis concentrates. It also instructs officers to not make arrests for possession of the personal amount of marijuana or related paraphernalia, and it facilitates an expungement process for those with past marijuana convictions. As I mentioned, there was a hearing yesterday. We were happy to be there with our coalition partners. We dropped off hearing binders with all of the committee members so that they would have information about the policy and support and the cost of prohibition, etc. And afterwards, we worked with Texas Cannabis Collective, and we put out flyers to all of the offices talking about why penalty reduction is so critical for our state. So post-hearing, This bill is pending a vote. This is very common, just so you know, in Texas. It is unusual to have a hearing be heard and on the same day vote for it. But we do hope that within perhaps the next week or two that this bill will be voted out. Representative Moody, who is the author, is also the chair of the House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee. Now, some other bills that have been filed that are of note, there's HB 127 and its companion SB 87, which would reduce the penalties of concentrates from a blanket first-degree felony to a lesser punishment depending on the amount possessed. Both of them have been referred to in the House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee, and in the Senate Criminal Justice Committee. There are several bills, HB 224 by Rep. Bernal, that would adjust the penalties, as well as one HB 382, which would be by Representative Nicole Collier, of defense to those that are being prosecuted with certain consumable hemp products. Basically, if it has a higher THC count percentage than you thought it did, and you're caught possessing it, but you thought you were buying a legal product, you do have a defense to prosecution. That bill has been referred to the House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee. And Ms. T, as she's known, Representative Semfronia Thompson, has authored HB 388, which would reduce the penalties for possession of 8 ounces, or I'm sorry, 8, oh, that would be great, 2 ounces or less of marijuana, and it strikes certain enhancements, such as like being near a school or something of that sort. And that has also been referred to the House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee. Now, Representative Jean Wu has HB 520, which seeks to remove and reduce penalties related to multiple levels of possession of flour. That's in the House Criminal Jurisprudence Committee awaiting hearing. In the Senate, Senator Eckhart has authored quite a few bills, and this is one of them, SB 208, which would reduce penalties for the delivery and possession of cannabis flower, and that has now been referred to the Senate State Affairs Committee. There's another bill by Representative Joe Moody, HB 1402, that would reduce possession of cannabis flower, and it lowers the possession of 4 ounces or less to a Class B misdemeanor, and 4 to 5 ounces to a Class A misdemeanor. So it kind of breaks it down, bringing all of the penalties down by weight. Further, I think there are two more bills having to do with penalty reduction. HB 1341 by Representative Wu would regulate the transportation of hemp in the state. It would repeal certain statutes that refer to cannabis, hashish oil as controlled substances, and would allow for cannabis consumption. The bill repeals certain offenses and removes certain regulations regarding cultivating, manufacturing, and distributing cannabis. It doesn't allow for solely cannabis to be used as a determining factor in determining parental rights, as long as the parent or guardian is abiding by law. So, last one having to do with penalty reduction is House Bill 2601 by Representative Garcia. It would reduce the penalties for less than 2 ounces of marijuana, removing it from a Class B for 2 ounces or less, and establishes that a Class C misdemeanor for 4 ounces or less. So taking down the classification of penalty for both of those weights. Now let's get to some legalization bills. I've got 3 here that I want to go over. 2 in the House, 1 in the Senate. SB 209 by Senator Eckhart would allow for the cultivation, manufacture, processing, distribution, sale, testing, transportation, delivery, all of that stuff of cannabis and cannabis products for those that are 21 and up. You could possess 2.5 ounces of flour, 15 grams of concentrates. It would also allow for home cultivation of up to 12 plants. Further, it would create parental protections for legal cannabis consumers, and it has been referred to the State Affairs Committee. So in the House, so I want to note that that's my senator, and the next person, this is my representative. Ooh, I love it. HB 1831, Representative Tallarico wants to allow those that are 21 and up to possess, use, and sell 2.5 ounces of cannabis, 15 grams of concentrates, and you could cultivate up to 12 plants again. It would also allow for an expungement provision, and a 10% tax would be implemented on all cannabis sales. There's another bill, House Bill 1937 by Representative Jessica Gonzalez, that would allow for those 21 and up to possess 2.5 ounces of cannabis, 15 grams of those could be in concentrate form, and it would have a 10% tax. So all of these are fairly similar bills, and definitely hopeful that we can get a hearing for one of those this time around. Now, there's a few miscellaneous bills that I want to point out, one of which is important for those that are governmental employees or get state benefits. House Bill 2562 would allow for certain groups of benefit plans to be offered to governmental employees so that it would cover low THC cannabis medicine. So this is important for those that are governmental employees, state employees, that they would be able to have their insurance or their benefit plans help them with the cost of that medication. Then there's some bills, HB 513, that has to do with if someone is death or serious bodily injury, and it has mostly to do with fentanyl, but it does mention marijuana in there, so we are tracking that legislation. There's two hemp bills by Senator Charles Perry, SB 264 and SB 321. One is kind of a cleanup bill to do some regular kind of regulatory items. Another is to deal with synthetic cannabinoids. Both of these have been referred to the Senate Water, Agricultural, and Rural Affairs Committee. And then the last one that I want to mention that's miscellaneous is HB 2857 by Representative Dutton. And that would make it where if a public school student is engaging in any conduct that involves possession of marijuana, that their removal from school would be optional rather than mandated. Now, there's also a few joint resolutions for us to go over. No pun intended there, but what is a joint resolution? So in Texas, we cannot collect signatures to get something on the ballot. We have to go through our legislature at the state level to change the cannabis laws. Now, I know there's been some local initiatives to direct local funds, but it doesn't change the law. And in those locations, you could still be arrested by, Texas sheriffs or DPS agents, etc. So to totally change the law in Texas, we have to go through the legislature instead of amending our Constitution. But the way that you can look at a joint resolution is it's a legislative measure that is used to propose amendments to the Texas Constitution. They require a supermajority in both chambers of the legislature to be adopted, but it doesn't require action by the governor. Before becoming effective, the provisions of the joint resolutions must be approved by the voters of Texas. Once approved, the resolutions come back to the legislature to have all of the statutes and regulations built out around them. So there are several joint resolutions. SJR 22 by Senator Eckhart and its companions HJR 89 and HJR 91, and it would put on the November ballot the question, the constitutional amendment directing the legislature to authorize and regulate the possession, cultivation, and sale of cannabis. That one has been referred to the Senate Judicial Committee, SJR 22. Additionally, there's another one that would propose that it would be regulated. It would regulate the possession, cultivation, and sale for medical use, and that is HJR 1118. So that is the long and short, or more like the long and long of it. Quite a few bills going, over 24, and we are likely to see a few more. So definitely stay tuned for that. I encourage all of you to go to texasnormal.org, click on our tab that says 88th Legislature, and on that tab you'll find a list of all of the bills that I've gone over and a hyperlink to them, so you can look at them on the website if you would like, or the Texas Legislative website. But you'll also find some action alerts there. Action alerts support medical cannabis to support penalty reduction, also legalization, and an action to support access for health insurance coverage for those state employees. So definitely go to texasnormal.org, click on that 88th Ledge, bookmark it for the future, because that's where we'll be posting updates, and please participate in those action alerts. So now that I have gone through and let you know all of the bills that we have going, I'm going to come over to the comments. But before I do, I want to remind everybody that the filing deadline is March 10th, and our lobby day is going to be on Tuesday, March 14th. Registration will start at 10 a.m. We will have a training. We will go through everything with you. We'll break out into our Senate groups to go off and start our office visits. We'll stop by our Senate and our House offices and drop them a note saying that we support cannabis law reform, hopefully be able to meet with some staffers and legislators. And then we will round out the day with any feedback being dropped off with us and hopefully set us up for a really great couple of weeks. You know, we have until the end of May to get this legislation across the finish line. And definitely the hearing on HB 218 was a great start, one of the earliest hearings that we've had for cannabis law reform here in Texas. So definitely hopeful on all those fronts. Now, I want to encourage you all to register for our lobby day. You can find the information about it on our site or on our social media. There's a registration link there. Registration is really important because A, it lets us know how many things to print and bring for everyone. And B, it lets us go ahead and figure out which districts you're in so that we can group you up with the appropriate people when the time comes. So I'm going to come over to the comments and see if you have any questions, or did I just do such a great job of explaining it that you don't have any? Let's see. All right. I definitely see some. Will any of these bills have a chance with Dan Patrick in office? Great question. So Dan Patrick is the president of the Senate, and that means that any bills that are filed go through him to be assigned to committee. So anytime that you heard me say that a bill had been assigned to a Senate committee, that is because Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick allowed it to be so. So that is good news for us for sure. But of course, historically, he has been very conservative on the issue. So we will definitely have our work ahead of us in the Senate. Most of the legislation that we support has passed the House. Some of it has passed the Senate. And so we just have to make it across that finish line this time around. What are the opportunities to help with lobbying? So I mentioned the lobby day. We will be there on Tuesday, March the 14th. So definitely join us for that. We've had a couple of our direct action days that we've hosted or coalition partners have hosted. And so we have been putting out information that way as well. So just stay tuned for those things and hopefully you can join us for those. Will you be listing the hearing dates and times for the various committees? Yes. So as you may have seen, if you go to our blog, we posted the hearing notice about HB 218 when we saw it come across, and we made sure that we included the virtual submission link. Fortunately for that committee, there was the ability for you to submit official statement online through a link, which was really great. And we let you know when all of that will be happening and where the hearing notice is. So we will continue to do that and let you know what is happening with that. Someone says, what is happening Tuesday, March 14th from 1 to 2 p.m.? Well, Tuesday, March 14th is the lobby day, and it will be happening 10 a.m. will be registration. 11 a.m. we'll start off with the training. There'll be a little lunch break, and then we'll go off into our meeting, different meetings with our House and our senators. It would help if you could send emails about the hearings. We did. We sent out 2 emails, one the day before and one the Friday it was announced. So if you guys are not already subscribed to our newsletter, if you go to texasnormal.org, you'll see a subscribe button. Just hit that right there, and you'll make sure to get all of these alerts that are going to be coming out over the session. Additionally, we did post on our social media. So if you follow us on any of the, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, you'll be able to see that there. I know sometimes the algorithm doesn't show you everything though. So if you ever want to just come and check in, definitely please do. Okay. Well, I think I think that's it, everybody. I want to thank you all so much for tuning in today. It was a really great time to be at the Capitol with so many of our friends and allies for a great hearing yesterday. And we're looking forward to some more positive movement over the next couple weeks. Hopefully, when we come back first Wednesday of April, we have even more good news for you guys and more updates. But that was the long and short of what bills have been filed, which ones have been referred to committee, and the one that has had a hearing. So until next time, friends, I hope you all have an amazing night.